Hi, I'm Reggie Turner. I'm here with Jim Miller and Terrence Moore. The FlipSide starts right now. Welcome to the show. Thank you for joining us. Tonight, gentlemen, we're back with more election coverage. We spanned out wide. We started talking about the congressional and Senate races. Now we got to bring it back in and talk about what's going on here at home. So let's jump right into it with the Hagerstown mayoral election. Right now we have the main contender as Bill McIntyre. As we've talked about before, Stephen Schuette stepped out of the race due to a promotion that he received in late August. However, he is still going to be on the ballot.
Yes.
Because he was not able to decline the nomination before the deadline.
Right.
Bill McIntyre is the owner of McIntyre HVAC in Hagerstown. He's a Clear Spring graduate, and he is a part of the Republican Central Committee. Bill says that his goals, he cited public safety, sustainable growth, and streamlining processes as his priorities. Also, as of this article that came out, that was updated at the middle of last month, we've had Whitney Burnett that is going to join the race as a write-in candidate. And we're also going to have Altamont Wilkes that is going to join the race as a write-in candidate. There was no profile information that was included in the Herald Mail article relative to these folks. But Altamont Wilkes did actually run for Congressional District 6 in the primary and was unsuccessful, obviously, in that race. But so he has some experience in these things, and he's thrown his name in the hat along with Miss Whitney Burnett. Mr. Moore, what say you?
I say it's interesting, to have write-in voters to come in. I guess it was a little disheartening not to see that there was going to be a mayoral race,
Right.
Not to pick one or the other, but, I wanted to kind of, hopefully competition breeds.
The best in.
Right. People
Right.
come out, people start talking about issues, and it was kind of a, coasting to the finish line once there was only one candidate. To see that they're write-in candidates. I hope that some of the forums that happen and there's still some interaction amongst them. I'm not seeing that right now. I don't know if anything is scheduled for them to all meet together or have a conversation. I am seeing a little bit of social media stuff about the write-in candidates, but I think at this time, they're just trying to get their name out.
Right.
And I hope that there's enough time to get their message out and not just their name. It's a big hurdle to overcome to be a write-in voter, so I think that's going to be a difficult challenge. But I think it does breed competition, and that's what I'm looking for.
Yeah, I mean, we're looking at less than a month here in regards to the election, so it's not a lot of time to try to gain name recognition and also talk about a platform and what you may represent. Jim, what say you?
So number one, my position would generally be that a write-in candidate doesn't have a snowball's chance in, well, the next word. Interestingly, though, last cycle, then Mayor Emily Keller won with 8,374 votes out of a total of about, call it 13,500 votes. So the bar for a write-in candidate is going to be far less, in my view, in the city election than it would be if we were looking at a state position or a national position. So do they have a chance? I'm probably still going to err in saying no, but it's possible. I think it'll be interesting. I think that in order for either of these two write-in candidates to have any level of opportunity to win this, they're going to have to be beating the street 24
Agreed.
hours a day,
Right.
7 days a week through November. I also want to echo, before I give the floor back, Terrence's thoughts that I am disappointed that we don't have a mayoral race. The city of Hagerstown is largely democratic, demographically speaking, and I feel like them not having a candidate there is problematic.
Well, the tough part I see in regards to this race is, I think to run a successful write-in campaign in this community, you need to come in the door of name recognition.
Right.
Right.
And neither of these candidates do.
Right.
Until you reminded me that one of them had run for the 6th District congressional seat, I had forgotten that fact.
And I think they're both business owners. I believe Ms. Burnett, she's no longer a business owner. I think she works now with Gatekeepers and Altamont Wilkes, or Mark Altamont Wilkes. He has the Carmen Market downtown, and he has been advocating, and I know he did some political things and got some things changed over, whether, because I know, I think during COVID, like, he was fighting because he returned home from prison, and unfortunately, because he was previously incarcerated and owning a business, he wasn't able to accept SNAP program, which limited his business. And he fought that all the way up and got that law actually changed. So I think he has some recognition, and I also believe Ms. Burnett was also in real estate at one point in time locally, and a landlord, you know, in her and her family at some point in time in the community. So I believe in certain segments they may have some name recognition. Do they have enough to echo it loudly into the community where people are going to gravitate to it, or know what they've done or want them to lead them? I think that's going to be difficult. And on top of what you said as far as name recognition is also an education program. You know, you have to educate individuals on how to vote
for a write-in candidate.
Right. And I don't see any of that. And I think that's going to be hard to do because there is no single point of media or information that you can get out to 15,000 people across the city and teach them how to actually vote.
So if you don't have a team and you don't have money, how do you accomplish this?
It's difficult. I think what Jim said.
Therein lies the problem.
Absolutely.
Number one, they've got a couple of weeks left before this thing happens. Number two, I'm sure they may, but I'm assuming that they don't have a significant budget to go spend to have professional videos made and then to, you know, put them on Facebook and every other social media platform.
The other challenge is, to me, is Schuette's name is still on the ballot.
Well, it is on the ballot. And, you know, the problem is that not everyone is going to be as cognizant of the fact that Mr. Schuette backed out of the race.
They'll remember he was in. They'll see a D next to his name. Well, there's no D next to his name. But
no.
The name recognition, because he had been in the race for a while, that he may he may outpace them, the two write-in candidates in votes.
Yeah.
No, absolutely. And on top of that, because it's a bipartisan election, the resources may not be there for you as a Democrat, maybe.
Right.
If these candidates are Democrat, I don't know if they've communicated which party they lean towards, but that's where you get some of your volunteers. Those where you usually turn to for some of your door knockers. You go to the central committees and they rally people together. They get volunteers behind you. And if you're not doing that now, then I think it's too late. And you can use social media as much as you can, but it takes a strong marketing campaign to get out there, and I'm not seeing it.
Right.
Well, and you know, and I assumed that Mr. Schuette was a Democrat. I don't know that for a fact. And this is a nonpartisan election, to your point.
Right.
So I'm not even sure that Mr. Schuette was a Democrat.
Some of the events that he attended, I've seen him at Democratic functions.
Okay.
So that's what the visual perception.
Yeah, but we don't have any hard facts to say one way.
No, I haven't dug into his voter registration.
I haven't either, nor do I plan to.
No.
And also in our recent history, if we remember when former delegate Brenda Cham was appointed to the seat, she still almost got in count. Like I think she got like 7% of the vote or something of that nature when she was no longer running for that seat. So I think I appreciate people jumping in the race to give voters a choice, right? Because I mean, if you're going to take your time in these last days to run a campaign, I appreciate that. But I just think it's tough, especially when you still have Schuette on the ballot.
Yeah. I appreciate it to an extent. I want to hear something. I want you to start talking about issues.
Right.
I want you to force,
conversation.
Force the conversation right now. I want to hear you out there publicly, beating the streets. I don't want to see you celebrating trying to win this like a popularity contest. If you know you can't win, force the issue, get the candidates to make some commitments, bring up some tough conversations, drive the message forward. At least you walk away with some kind of win.
Well, so yeah, I agree with you 100%. And this whole notion, this whole thing with the SNAP, I remember that issue, and I remember how impressed that I was that he was able to get that through. And I'm going to say one of my favorite sayings here: you don't have to have a title to be a leader.
I agree.
Right.
And clearly, in that particular case, leadership, that's what we saw.
Right.
Great.
And leadership for the right thing. So, I mean, you got to applaud that. And if I were him, I'd be singing that from the treetops as part of whatever campaigning he's going to do. But it's going to be an uphill battle.
Right. I mean, because if you think about it, this voters guide came out, the write-in candidates were not included. So it is very difficult. I think DC Now may have ran a quick little profile on the two write-in candidates, but there's not a lot out there.
I tell you right now, I've spoken with Bill, and I've also spoken with Altamont. I haven't spoken with Whitney. I would love that conversation. And I've heard both of them talk about that, but I'm not hearing it. So I don't want to say that they don't have it. I'm just saying it's not being communicated in a way that's going to touch the masses. And I would love to hear both of them talk about their points publicly and really engage voters to a degree where it's not just about voting for someone who you believe is in your party or a name that you're familiar with.
And the one thing that I don't know as of the airing of this show is, will there be a Chamber of Commerce forum for the mayoral race, including the write-in candidates?
Well, that's a good question, because I would assume that when Mr. Schuette backed out,
they may have shut that down.
They probably shut that down, and it's probably very difficult, if not impossible, to get that rescheduled at this juncture.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know that, but I would guess that.
Yeah. And that leads me kind of to the transition of looking at the Hagerstown City Council race. They did have a forum yesterday morning at Applause Catering in regards to their forum, where I believe 6 of the candidates were present. Christian Alshire was present, Erica Bell was present, Mark Bell was present, Stacy Michaels was present, and Peter Perini and Rich Owens were all present at that. 3 of the other candidates had previous commitments and could not make it. And then Sean Flaherty, I believe, was ill yesterday, and he couldn't make it from what I've seen. But if we're looking at this city council race, we have 4 incumbents and 6 challengers running for 5 seats.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
We have Christian Alshire, the long-term incumbent that's running. Christian is the town manager of Myersville and has served for a number of years. We have Carolyn Anderson, who is the owner of Aeon Virtual Office in downtown Hagerstown.
Challenger, right?
Challenger,
yep.
Yes, into the race. We have Erica Bell, who is the, it says co-owner of Tribe Cold Pressed Juice Bar in downtown Hagerstown. She was one of the applicants for the position of council when Mayor Martinez was appointed, but she was not selected as one of the finalists for that race. We have Mark Bell. Mark Bell is a martial arts instructor, real estate broker, and a defense contractor. He has cited crime, safety, and accountability as his priorities for the city.
Well, his background says that, right?
Yeah, his background said it before he said it, right? We have Tia Burnett, who's also an incumbent after she served her first year on city council, or first term on city council.
Right.
We have Sean Flaherty, who is a product support analyst and for Integrated Data Services, a California-based firm in government defense contract work. He was one of the finalists for the city council position when Mayor Martinez was appointed to mayor. We have Stacy Michaels, also local, South Hagerstown grad. She's a rebel, serves on several community organizations. She was also a finalist for the seat of Mayor Martinez when she was moved up. She says that her priorities for the city are youth programs, infrastructure, and economic growth.
And she also serves on the Ethics Commission currently, right, with the city? Does she have a
I don't see that still on here, but okay. I know at some point she did serve on that Ethics Commission. Then we have incumbent Peter Perini. Peter was appointed to the vacancy when Bob Brucci resigned from his spot. Peter's well known. He's run for office several times. This is his next chance to actually become elected by the voters. He's been unsuccessful in previous, as he has run for city council before. He's run for school board, and he's also run for the city delegate, the 2B delegate position. Rich Owens and his wife renovated the former Christian Science reading room on North Potomac Street, and they now run an inn on Potomac, a bed and breakfast in that building. He's been a city resident since 2013. Interestingly enough, he's a graduate of Howard University. I would love to hear his story. Like, what sent you to a historically black institution? So I think that's a very interesting background for him. He cites public safety, jobs, development and streamlining, building revitalization, and more inclusive zoning as his issues. And then finally, we have incumbent Matt Schindler, who was appointed when Mayor Martinez was appointed as mayor. He's a graduate of North High, so local guy. He's an IT manager for National Capital Bank of Washington. He currently serves on the board of Federal Little League and a few other commissions. Schindler says his priorities are economic development, addressing blighted properties, substance abuse and mental health, and safety and community outreach. So that is our 10 candidates for that position for 5 spots. Jim, how do you see it, sir?
So there's been there's been a lot on Facebook about the city, of course, because of the recent concerns and discussions on drug problems and crime and all of those types of things. And I noticed that the Republican Central Committee posted a clean the house, or or everybody out, or whatever the case may be.
Red X'd everybody.
They did. You know what that feels like, right? But I'm a little more retrospect than that, for 2 reasons. Number one, should we be talking about the drug problem and the crime problem in Hagerstown? Yes, we should, every day. But does that mean that somebody is going to just have a magic bullet to solve it? No pun intended.
No, you're not.
No, they're not. And, we're not the only community. I've said this before, and I mean it. We're not the only community that faces this. In fact, we're probably one among thousands of communities that face this across the United States. Do we need to talk about it? Yes. Do we need to address it? Yes. Do we need to do everything in our power to make the city streets safer? Yes, we do, especially given all of the money that has been spent in development for baseball stadiums and theaters, and the money that private citizens have put in, like Mr. Bowman and all of the great work he's done there, and others. The list continues. There's a lot of investment in our city. And there was a notion that when you do the investment, some of the bad things will go away. And that still may happen. I think we're too early. But I think we can also contribute to the bad things going away. So that said, I don't look at any one of these incumbent council members and say, we have crime because it's your fault.
No.
I don't look at it that way. I am a little concerned at some of the people that don't list crime, and because whether it's real or whether it's perceived, the fact of the matter is perception is reality, and there are a lot in this community, there are a lot in this county that perceive downtown Hagerstown as unsafe.
Well, I don't believe it's perceived, because if we go back to 2021 and we look at the strategic plan that the city was touting, their number one goal was public safety.
Well, I get that, and having that as a number one goal, though, again, if you talk to some city employees or some city elected officials, they will say that the problem is more perceived than it is real. I don't care which it is. The fact of the matter is perception is reality, and if that keeps us from building the downtown that we once had and the downtown that we would like to see, then we need to address it.
Perception can really affect your dollars, your bottom line.
It absolutely affects your dollars. And if we want to see continued investment by the likes of Mr. Bowman and other really smart business people in our community and outside of our community, we got to fix this. And if it's a perception, we got to change the perception. If it's reality, we got to change reality. If it's somewhere in between, we got to address it on two fronts. Now, how do you do that? I think that takes beyond the wisdom of Solomon, much less my feeble brain. But we got to work on it.
But you're not running for election.
I'm not.
But that's the problem. If you are running for election, give me a how. You don't have to be right, but you at least should be trying.
Right.
And I'm not hearing the how. And I keep hearing.
And we've not heard the how at all. And we've not even, not only haven't we heard the how, we're not even hearing the issue at the level that I'd like to hear it.
Yeah, and stop talking about whether or not, I've been hearing the perception thing for almost a decade. It's been about perception. Oh, we're talking about perception. Oh, it's just perception. Okay.
And
perception,
maybe it is.
Perception lends itself to reality eventually.
Right. Well,
And if that's the perception, everyone believes that, that's the perception of those who don't feel safe and those who want to make sure other people don't feel safe as well. Because you think you could get away with it, then you do the things because you think there's no repercussions for it. So yes, I think at some degree it can lend itself over time to reality if it's not addressed. And if everyone is bickering about whether or not it's perception, whether it's not reality, whose fault is it, that doesn't change what is actually happening and what we see in the paper and what is actually going on. So I agree that we really have to focus in that no one's going to have the right answer, right? And be okay with that and give grace to everybody who comes in. But I'm only giving grace if you come in with some kind of solution. Now, if you're coming in feeling like you can't be criticized, that you didn't make any mistake, and that, you know, that is not your fault or blame another administration, I'm tired of hearing that personally. I want to hear somebody come to the table and say, hey, this is what I suggest. This is what I want to do. It may not work, but I want to work with people to see if I can make it work. And I'm willing to listen to anybody who have a better suggestion. I'm not hearing that. All I hear is the bickering back and forth, the finger pointing at one another. And as a constituent, it's exhausting.
So, you know, if just kind of looking at it from the context of the current body, Quarterman's letter has become the boogeyman, right? So now, in every council meeting, they're having different constituencies in the building because they're trying to address the points in Quarterman's letter. And for me, you know, if we're kind of looking back and Monday morning quarterbacking it, if public safety is your number one concern, why weren't you doing this 3 years ago? Because if you're sitting here at the end of your administration and basically saying, wow, we're having these great conversations and I didn't know these things from all these partners that we may not work with directly, but if public safety was your number one goal, you should have been doing it then. And as much as they want to complain about the letter sparked action for them to at least start having meetings to have an understanding of all these partners. Because how could you have public safety as your number one goal if you're not in touch with all these ancillary partners around your community and around the state?
A goal without a plan is a wish. and that's what it is right now.
There was a Democratic governor in Maryland who used to say that all of the time.
And it's the truth. Yes, you know, we talk about this is our goal. How are we going to attain it? When are you going to attain it? Like, if you don't have those measurable actions in place and something specific to measure, it's just a wish. And And because you keep bringing this up right around the time of election, I'm losing faith in that. And again, I'm not just talking about those sitting in the seat. I want to hear it from those who want to challenge the seat as well.
Right.
And frankly, we're not hearing it from the people.
Part of it, though, and Terrence, you've always talked about this. You really don't like forums. You want debates, right? So when you think of the forum that the Chamber of Commerce had, you really didn't get into these issues with any breadth or knowledge. Like it was everyone was kind of giving the same talking points. Oh, we got to collaborate, and we all the little things that we've heard over the years that need to be done, but no one was really speaking to those things. And I'll have to give Kristen credit. Like sometimes in
Christian,
sometimes in city council meetings he gets long-winded. He takes a long time to get to his point. But in this forum, he was very concise in regards to kind of where he was. And one of the things I've always appreciated about him is I'm not out here giving you campaign lines for your vote. Do your homework. If you think I'm for you, great. If not, vote for whomever.
And Kristen is very smart. He is an exceptionally bright man in my view. And I don't always agree with him. And in fact, I have vehemently disagreed with him on more than one occasion. And I'd like to think I was right in all of those arguments. He may disagree with that.
Well, you lose so many on this show. I hope you have an avenue where you may be right from time to time.
You can't argue that he's not passionate about what he does. You can't argue that he doesn't have an opinion. You can't argue that he's not transparent, sometimes to a fault. But I think, in my view, those are three traits that help if you're trying to be a public servant.
Yeah. I think they're foundational, to show that you're qualified for the work. And on top of that, you need to have the ability to build relationships.
Yes.
I think you have to be able to humble yourself and step outside your comfort zone of what you believe the data is telling you, and work with people and work and collaborate. And I think that's what Kristen can improve upon, some of that relationship building.
I think most of them can improve upon that.
Absolutely.
Because one of the questions that was asked on the forum was, they were asked about their relationship with the county. And many of the responses of the incumbents were, we need to kill partisanship, and they were praising John Barr. But that's fine, but and John Barr is the president and the leader, but he's still only one.
That's it.
Right? There's other people that you don't get along with that you may see as partisan, but there are issues that have to be solved for your constituents that causes you, that you're going to need to work together to get those things resolved. The other thing that's concerning to me, we've laughed and joked before on previous shows of talking about the $200 million budget and things of that nature. I'm not a city resident, but one of the things and now with the limited reporting that we get, we really don't get a real profile of some of these candidates. Mm-hmm. And one of my concerns is, if you don't have your financial affairs right at home, do you want people like that overseeing a $200 million budget, making those type of decisions on your life when they're not managing their personal finances in a way that's proper? I just think that I hope that voters do their homework in regards to some of these candidates, because some of these candidates are presenting themselves as one thing, but it's not that. And I would be concerned about candidates that aren't balancing their own checkbook.
But that's where debates actually happen. When you start asking people on
the record.
Yes. Tell me your economic plan.
Right.
Tell me about, if we have X amount of dollars in the budget, where would you, what are you going to cut, and how are you going to pay for some of your ideas?
Right.
That's when you challenge people. And don't get me wrong, everybody can have some financial hardship in their personal finances. It happens. Doesn't completely disqualify people. But if we're not challenging them and asking them the question, then that's all we have to go on. That's unfortunate.
No. I think many people have challenges relative to their finances, right? At some point in their life.
Right.
COVID happens, the real estate bubble bursting, you lose a job or health circumstances. But if these things are perpetual, like this is a pattern of behavior over 10, 15, 20 years of your life, that's a whole different beast than just the one-off scenario. That's a pattern of behavior, and that's what I'm concerned about, because it felt like the 2020 election where there wasn't. So we haven't had many forums this election cycle either, right?
Locally? No.
Locally, when we're open. So I just don't know how much voters really know about these candidates.
And again, I believe the only ones that's doing forums that I'm aware of is the chamber.
Yep.
Who else?
I know that there was something at the library.
There was
a few months ago.
Yeah.
The NAACP and
possibly it was one of the organizations, but there hasn't been much.
All right. Let's take a break.
Fair enough. So we're going to come back. We'll talk about, we got school board still to go.
School board.
Yeah. All right. Stay with us. We'll have more election coverage after the break. Welcome back to the show in regards to our election coverage. Gentlemen, we have some things to talk about, so let's jump right in. We have school board up. We have 4 of 7 seats up here in Washington County, and 4 incumbents are running, as well as 4 challengers for this race. First up on our list, we have Victoria Beachley, which we should remember she ran for county commissioners last election cycle unsuccessfully, but she is back. In regards to running for this race. She lives in Hagerstown. She's the mother of 2 small children. She has a BA in business administration from North Carolina State University, and her family, they run a successful business here in town.
Leadership Washington County, class 32, best class ever. We're contractually required to do that.
Shameless plug. Then we have incumbent Peter Bickford, Hagerstown resident, North High grad, go Hubs. Trying to see what we can see in regards to that. I would say that Peter is one of the more popular, well-known candidates in this race, from his donut drop and all the other things that he does locally.
Well, Peter has a lot of name recognition.
Yes.
But you know what? The other reality about Peter is very smart.
Yep.
He's very smart, and he's very level-headed.
Yep. Great relationship building as well.
Oh, 100%. Yes.
Next up, we have Charles Burkett, who we've talked about before. Charles has run for county commissioners twice.
He was appointed to county commissioner
Right.
for a period of time.
Right. He ran in 18 and 22. He lost both of those races, but he was appointed in 21 to serve out the rest of that particular term. He says he's running for school board. He has concerns regarding the school system spending and how behavior issues are addressed in schools. So that is why he is running for this race. Next, we have Ashley McCusker. She is her first time running for public office. She has 2 children in public school. She's a graduate of Hancock and Allegheny Community College, and her husband is a councilman in Hancock. She says she's running because clients have a voice. And her main issues, and I just wanted to highlight this because it jumped out to me. She says that she does not want a woke curriculum or porn or sexually explicit materials in school libraries. She wants parents informed about curriculum choices.
It's porn in school libraries?
That's
Wow.
what she said.
Okay. I don't think anybody wants that, but I get it. I understand.
The way you said that initially, I thought you were going to go apply for a library card.
I was really concerned about how you accentuated
I'm saying
it.
school changed a lot since I was there.
How do I get one of them cards?
we may have to bleep that out. Next we have Roblyn Spickler. She's a retired teacher of Washington County Public Schools of 44 years, lives in Hagerstown. She works at Children's Village teaching fire and personal safety second graders who visit the nonprofit. She's a graduate of Frostburg State, go Bobcats. I've been to pretty much every school in the state. She says she's running. She's invested in the public education school system in which her 2 school-age grandkids are educated. She wants to keep education in Washington County proceeding in the right direction for students and teachers in the community. Next up, we have Stan Stauffer, who is an incumbent.
Current vice president.
Current vice president. He's seeking his 3rd term. He's a retired teacher, coach, and athletic director in Washington County. He's also a veteran who has served. I would say he's pretty well known.
Yes, very well.
And respected in regards to what he does. And he has 3 great-grandchildren that are coming through the school system. And he wants to keep WCPS striving towards excellence. Melissa Williams, who is the president, correct?
Correct.
She's seeking her 4th term on school board. She's a retired WCPS educator of over 35 years in the school system. She did educational consulting for the Maryland State Department of Education and Chesapeake Coalition for Essential Schools. That was a mouthful. She's a North High grad. She's earned her degree from Shepherd University, and her husband Dave actually ran unsuccessfully the last election cycle in 2022.
County commissioner.
Yes, for county commissioner in 2022. April Zetmeyer is a retired teacher and school administrator. We have a theme here in regards to this. A lot of educators. She's seeking her 2nd term on school board. A graduate of South High.
Dr. Zetmeyer.
Dr. Zetmeyer, go Rebels, I guess, but I'm not a rebel, but I was just showing them some love to not show bias towards the Hubs. Bachelor's and master's degree from Towson University. She is a doctorate in educational leadership and policy from the University of Maryland, College Park, go Terps. And she is the mother-in-law of Washington County County Commissioner Derek Harvey. I like that. I like the fact that it showed us a little bit about relationships. She said why she's running, because the future, including her grandchildren's, is in schools today. It is our honor and responsibility to teach them to read, write, compute, critical think, and analyze, remember our historical roots, I love that, and love learning.
Some great conversation over Thanksgiving dinner, probably.
Absolutely. Did I miss any candidates there? I went through them pretty quickly there. But Jim, what say you?
So let me get down the list here. Of the incumbents, Peter Bickford is, if he gets beat, he shouldn't get beat, in my view.
Right.
I think he is just an amazing.
That would be a Jason Malott type of upset, right?
Yes, it would. It absolutely would. Peter has been extraordinary, in my view. As we look at the other
Robin Spickler, is she an incumbent?
No.
No. Stan Stauffer is an incumbent. I'll be very, very truthful with you. When Stan first ran for school board, I was not a fan. I have changed my opinion. I have flip-flopped. I knew Stan from when I was at Williamsport High School. Go Wildcats! I got to get that in there. Once a Wildcat, always a Wildcat. And
I thought you were a river rat.
Well, no. Well, I was both.
Okay,
right.
All right.
Stan, I never had Stan as a teacher, but I knew him from school. I knew him from coaching. Yeah, I had concerns when he started. He has exceeded my expectations. Melissa Williams also has exceeded my expectations. I had no previous experience with her. I saw on the way she conducted herself on several of the school board meetings that I've watched online. There was one recent incident where a parent, regardless of whether his point was valid or not,
he was pretty belligerent.
He was beyond belligerent, and Melissa handled it with style and grace and compassion and all of those other good words. And if only for that, but there's many more reasons, I will definitely have Melissa Williams on my list. Beyond that, I have little I have little understanding of who I'm going to vote for at this point, and this is a race that I need to look into because I like to go to the polls as an informed constituent. And the ability to do that is more difficult now that we essentially have no media outlets in Washington County, print media outlets that do any level of significant coverage on this. So it's going to be a toss-up for me.
And April Zetmeyer or Dr. Zetmeyer is the last incumbent.
That's correct. And I don't know a lot about Dr. Zetmeyer. Yeah, I don't know a lot.
Well, I'll say this, Terrence, and I'll turn it over to you. Just kind of looking at this race, and I'm looking at the age of the candidates that are incumbents, there's going to be a drastic change
at some
over
point.
the next 8, 12 years in regards to what that body is going to look like because they're moving on up there.
Yes, they are. That's a very good point.
Yeah. Terrence, what say you?
And I'll speak for someone in a community that doesn't have any children in the school system, because I don't have any children, so they've never been through the school system.
Allegedly.
I was going to say that, and I thought, no, I'll be
No. But I'll say
none that you know of.
I can guarantee you none. But I do want to say that a couple of things. First is we're all affected by what happens in our school system.
Yes.
Especially our public school system, and I don't care how involved you are, whether your children have graduated, whether you have children in the school system now, or whether our school system is extremely important to everything we do, from our public safety through our economy. So I believe everyone should do their due diligence to really understand who is going to be leading our school system and making some of those decisions for our youth. So I want to put that out there first and foremost, and don't discount it because you don't believe it impacts you, because it does.
Right.
Second is I had the pleasure of hearing Dr. Sovine a couple of weeks ago, who came in and spoke to us about his strategic plan over Washington County Public Schools. It's a very aggressive plan. It's a very positive one. It's culture changing. He's done a great job of reaching out and building relationships outside the walls of the school system and bringing in, he had a whole strategic planning session when he brought in community leaders, he brought in local business owners to kind of help build that strategic plan. I believe that there's a great relationship right now between him and the school board as well as they work together. I believe that is important for us to thrive forward. And I want to see this plan executed in a way that is inclusive of the entire community, and we don't hear about our education on the fringe of things happening, and we can all stay engaged at some point. So I believe with Dr. Sovine coming into this community back in 2022, I believe this is going to be his year. I believe this is really going to be his time to work with some of these changes, some of these school board members, and really implement some of his impact now that he's transitioned and adjusted to the community over the last year, almost 2 years in the community. So I believe who we select is going to be extremely important to work and partner with our superintendent and his leadership.
Right.
I couldn't agree more. Right. And also, I will tell you, and I will expand on my concerns originally over Stan Stafford. It wasn't necessarily about Stan. It was about a concentration of former teachers on the school board. And I still think it's important that we have a combination. I think Peter Bickford, one of the strengths that he brings is the fact that he is not a former educator.
Right.
Having said that, some of the former educators that we have on there, including Ms. Williams and others, have brought significant value to the table in my estimation. I mean, there's a lot to be happy and proud of in Washington County schools. Could it be better?
Absolutely.
You will never hear me say that it couldn't be better in some way.
Right.
But we have a lot to be proud of.
And I do want to add and give a shout out to Ms. Daphne Wang, who is the student member that is part of the board as well. So she brings the voice of the students and makes sure that they're being heard when they're in the room as well, which I believe is an amazing idea to have. And same thing with the mix of industries and from educators to business owners, the more diverse thoughts you have in the room and creating an understanding, I believe the more synergy you can have across the community as a whole, because I don't believe our school system could survive insulated away from everyone else.
Gotcha. All right, gentlemen. Well, thank you for covering that. I think it was best for us to leave the local races where we're not putting our thumb on the scales in regards to who we think will win. But we have some October surprises to talk about in the Senate and the congressional race. So can we take a quick break and come back and talk about
Let's do
those?
it.
Stay with us. We'll have more of the flip side after the break.
Did you know Antietam Broadband offers an affordable, reliable home phone solution? Get unlimited local and U.S. long distance, plus call waiting, caller ID, voicemail, and more. Switching your home phone service to Antietam is easy, and you can keep your same number. Antietam Broadband, the reliable choice. Make the switch and start saving today. Add home phone service from Antietam Broadband. Call 301-797-5000 today.
We see, and there's pictures embedded in my mind of, for example, a little 3-year-old girl who's carrying bags of things that her mom had selected, and her mom before her is in here as well. So generations where you can see that this is a special place, something for them to be able to select a neat gift, and to see that transcend across generations is, it's just a great thing.
Welcome back to the show. Gentlemen, jumping right back in, our October surprise has hit in the Maryland Senate race. Now, as of the airing of this show, tonight at 7 p.m., there will be a debate between Angela Alsobrooks and former Governor Larry Hogan, shown on MPT, WBAL, and NBC4. So by the time this show airs, many folks will have watched this or have read about it in the newspaper or followed it on X the next day. But the October surprise that came right before the debate, you see the timing here, is as the Time ran an exclusive that Larry Hogan approved millions for his firm listed as clients when he was the governor. Part of what has been found is many contracts through the Housing and Community Department of Housing and Community Development were going to developers in which Governor Hogan had a relationship with. Up to 40% of those contracts were going to developers that he had a relationship with. When he took over the office in 2015, he was to be putting his assets in a blind trust, but his trust was not actually blind. He did have some insight in regards to his trust. And apparently, I believe his brother had oversight of this particular trust. So we have a bit of a dust up. We talked a little bit last week in regards to some of the tax issues that Angela Alsobrooks was taking advantage of, and now we're looking at what Governor Hogan is alleged to have been doing while he was in office. And it seems as if some of the things with the Ethics Commission weren't tight. There was some loopholes that they fixed after he was out of office, but he was taking votes in the Board of Public Works meetings of money and grants that was going to developers that he had relationships with, and he never recused himself of those things. So that is the newest, fresh off the press, and it's going to be interesting to see in the debate tonight if that comes up.
If it comes up.
That's a good one,
That's
isn't
a
it?
good one.
If it comes up, yeah.
But I would imagine Democrats were making sure that this story got out right before the debate so that he spent the whole afternoon prepping for how he was going to handle this. Terrence, you're chomping at the bit. What say you, sir?
First of all, to prep for debates is more than an afternoon, especially at this level. So the timing of this was extremely strategic because I don't think as much prepping he could have done or can do to really combat of where they're going to take this. Because you really go into a debate wondering how they're going to come out every issue, making sure everything you say gets executed the right way. What if they spin it this way? You have you have people standing. You debate with debate prep is extensive and it goes on for weeks, days, months, hours, whatever. So there's no way he's going to be well prepared to answer these questions. And he can't say, no response, right? And no comment, right? He has to answer these questions, and I think it's going to be a great way to steer anytime we see Angela also Brooks, get put back on the ropes. If that happens, this is her card, right? She can play this card to really kind of keep it fair, or she's going into this with somewhat of an advantage, because of this. And her October surprise has now since died down over the last, it's been 2 weeks now since that announcement about her.
2 to 3 weeks.
Right. And at least 3 weeks.
Yeah.
I don't know about you guys, because I get correspondence from both sides of the aisle. So I've been getting killed with robocalls from the Republican side in regards to Angela Also Brooks on her issues. But here's the thing, though, Jim, and I'll hand it over to you. Angela Also Brooks' situation was personal, right? It was a personal property. It was something relative to her taxes. Obviously, there's ethics issues that have to do with it. But Governor Hogan, this issue is taking it to a whole nother level, because this is how you are using the power of government to steer things towards...
Allegedly.
We do allegedly, but we do know for a fact 40% of affordable housing funds during Hogan's tenure went to developers that were listed as clients of his firm.
Okay.
Jim, what say you?
I don't know what I know about this, and here's the deal. You talked about him spending all kinds of time this afternoon figuring out how to address it. If there's no there, and at this point, I think it's early enough in this process that we don't know what the truth is. I have never in my life seen an opponent, a Democrat or Republican, try to blow something up on the other on their challenger. So, I'm sure that this is all 100% factual. That was a joke. Yeah, I don't know what to think here. I think that if there is nothing behind this, then Governor Hogan will have some reasonable answer, and I'm sure he'll get questioned on it tonight and at other points.
Yeah.
If there is, then I think that'll be pretty evident too. I would be surprised by this.
Again, because it's a debate, Angela's alleged actions of finance miscues, she got to take a step back, get in from the media, and address it, knowing the questions, and kind of manage that.
But the timing of hers 3 weeks ago,
that's what I'm saying.
It's out of sight, out of mind.
In the absence of information, as you pointed out, we don't know. All we know is what's in this article, and this is a very detailed, extensive article that's put out there. And there's some accusations of, just deleting information off the internet, removing names. There's a lot of accusations put out in here. And I want to say this, that his company, Hogan, is a multi-purpose real estate brokerage firm based in Annapolis that handles some of the highest developers and work with some of the top-range developers in the region. So is it really hard to believe that they would have won some of those bids if there's some of the top developers in the region? Let's say that, first of all.
Right.
That's like saying, we got to investigate Alabama because they got a lot of players in the NFL, right? Right? Yes, they're the one. But those are the kind of things that I believe is leaving, and there's gaps there that allow people to believe something that may or not be true. Again, we need more information. But in the absence of information, people assume the worst.
I accept your point on that one. The one that's a little bit more troubling to me is in the Board of Public Works meetings, when you're voting on these items and you're not disclosing that you have a business relationship with those that are receiving those. That's the one that's more troublesome to me, is that you didn't simply state your conflict.
I agree, but that's the Ethics Commission that should have been holding some accountable. Right? There's a disclosure document, a financial document you have to put out even as a volunteer for the government. They knew this information. His blind trust, he put his brother on the blind trust.
Disclosure for the state of Maryland?
His blind trust was putting his brother's name, and nobody in 8 years said, hold up, that's not right. and now right now it's an issue. See, these are the kind of things that bother me a little bit. There's a lot of people that should be held accountable then, for this, including himself if this is true. But how did they allow it to go so far for so long?
Yeah. My question is, how many of 6 district voters bought beer or wine from Total Wine and More, David Trone's business, and should we be investigating that? Well, the answer, of course, is we don't know and we don't care, and we shouldn't be investigating that. I think that there's potential. This is a potential damning situation, but again, I'm not going to get into it until I find out the facts.
Right.
Because even the notion of the ethics issue could be spun, and.
But that's the beauty of debate tonight, right? We're going to get to see the beginning origins of spin and answers in regards to that. And if some of us are lucky, I believe Governor Hogan is going to be in Washington County tomorrow.
Yes, he is.
So.
Yes. Because everybody's making their pop-up visit in Western Maryland right now.
And in regards to transition, Terrence and I, Terrence was mentioning it when we talked before, that this is when candidates make their breeze through Hagerstown. And Angela also Brooks made her breeze through Hagerstown this past weekend. Mm-hmm. Spent a few hours really quickly. And
then we had some other candidates have a little dust up in Western Maryland a couple of days ago.
Yes, we did. Let's jump right into that one. So the League of Women Voters had a forum at Hood College. I believe it was Sunday night.
Could be, yeah.
Or this weekend. And
the video's on YouTube.
Neil Parrott and April Delaney had a spirited, they had a very civil conversation until we got to about the last 5 minutes.
Right.
Then towards the last 5 minutes, and then when Neil Parrott got to his closing remarks, he was very animated and pointing at April Delaney and accusing her of lying about his record. And then there was a pointing match back and forth between the two. And then April Delaney grabbed his arm and proceeded to say something, and he got up and went away from the table, and so it was this dust up.
And the Democratic picture.
Yeah, so that's the key, right? So soon after, many Democratic operatives put out a picture, a still shot of what appeared to look as Neil Parrott hovering over April Delaney with his hands in her face. But when you watch the video, that's not what it was.
He was leaving.
He was leaving. Yeah. She grabbed his arm. She had something to say. He started pointing. She started pointing. They were pointing back and forth. He gets up from the table and throws his hands up and says, "We're done here," and he walks off.
Yeah. Watch the video. It's
you have to watch
TV.
The video.
And unfortunately, we're out of time, so we have to leave it there.
Oh, my goodness.
But
this won't even be any fun anymore because they'll be in Washington County next week having a forum, but not a debate.
Hopefully this will fill the hall with people waiting to see the celebrity death match between April Delaney and...
And it's one of the most hotly contested races, so I am sure that there may be some press coverage of that forum there that normally doesn't make its way to Washington County.
Yep.
All right.
Close us out.
Well, that is all the time that we have for tonight. We hope that you'll like us on Facebook, follow us on X, and send us your comments to feedback@theflipsidetv.com. That is feedback@theflipsidetv.com. But most importantly, join us again next week for another episode of The Flip Side.